Welcome to Module 2, Lesson 1, From Curiosity to Research Problems. In this lesson, we'll explore how researchers transform their initial curiosity into focused, researchable problems. This is a foundational skill that will serve you throughout your research career, regardless of your discipline or methodological preferences. In today's session, we have 3 primary learning objectives. First, we'll learn to differentiate between general interests, topics, problems, and questions. Understanding the distinctions between these elements is crucial for developing focused research. Second, we'll identify various sources of research problems across different contexts, recognizing that meaningful problems can emerge from multiple origins. Finally, we'll analyze the development path from curiosity to focused problem, examining how this narrowing process works in practice. Research always begins with curiosity, that spark of interest that makes us wonder about something in our world. However, curiosity alone isn't sufficient for rigorous research. We need to refine that initial interest through a systematic narrowing path that follows this progression. Interest then, topic then, problem then, question then, hypothesis. Let me explain each step. We start with a broad interest area that captures our attention. We then focus on a specific topic within that interest. From there, we identify a specific problem or gap that needs investigation. This problem then gets formulated into precise research questions, which may lead to testable hypotheses in certain research traditions. This pathway helps transform vague curiosity into structured inquiry. Let's look at 2 concrete examples of this pathway in action. In healthcare research, someone might begin with a general interest in healthcare disparities. This could narrow to a topic focusing specifically on rural healthcare access. Within that topic, they might identify a problem concerning barriers to specialty care for rural patients. This could lead to a specific research question such as, how do telehealth interventions affect specialty care access for rural patients with chronic conditions? Similarly, in education research, an initial interest in student motivation might focus on the topic of online learning engagement. The researcher might identify the problem of high dropout rates in online courses, leading to a research question like, what factors predict persistence in self-paced online courses among first-generation college students? Notice how each example moves from broad to specific, creating a manageable and focused research direction. One of the key challenges in developing research problems is finding the right balance. Problems that are too broad are difficult to research effectively. They lack specificity and often require resources beyond what's feasible. Conversely, problems that are too narrow may lack significance or wider application. Effective narrowing strategies include focusing on specific aspects, populations, or contexts, while maintaining a connection to broader significance. The goal is to create a manageable research scope that still allows for meaningful contribution to knowledge or practice. Finding this balance is essential for developing problems that are both researchable and worthwhile. Research problems can emerge from multiple sources, and understanding these sources helps us identify potential problems in our own contexts. Personal experience and professional practice often reveal gaps or challenges that merit investigation. Literature review may uncover contradictions, unanswered questions, or limitations in existing research. Theory testing and development can generate problems around applying, extending, or challenging theoretical frameworks. Social problems and policy concerns often highlight areas needing evidence-based solutions. Finally, Technological innovations frequently create new phenomena requiring investigation. By recognizing these diverse sources, we can more effectively identify promising research problems in our fields. Let's examine the first two sources in more detail. Personal experience and professional practice are rich sources of research problems. These might include observations from your work or life that raise questions, challenges, or inefficiencies you've encountered, or professional dilemmas that lack clear solutions. For example, a teacher might notice that certain instructional strategies seem more effective with multilingual learners, prompting research into why and how these approaches work. Literature can also reveal research problems through contradictory findings across studies, unanswered questions acknowledged by researchers, or limitations mentioned in published work. For instance, a literature review might reveal that mental health interventions have been primarily tested with urban populations, indicating a gap regarding their effectiveness with rural communities. Theory-based research problems emerge when researchers apply established theories to new contexts, test competing theoretical explanations, or challenge theoretical assumptions. For example, a researcher might examine whether a communication theory developed for face-to-face interactions applies in virtual environments. Social problems often generate research questions about current societal challenges requiring evidence-based solutions or evaluations of existing programs and interventions. For instance, increasing homelessness among older adults might prompt research on housing intervention effectiveness. Technological innovations frequently create research problems around unstudied impacts of new technologies. The rise of generative AI, for example, prompts questions about effects on student writing and learning processes. Each of these sources can lead to valuable research problems across disciplines. Research problems typically fall into these major categories: descriptive, relational, causal, evaluative, and intervention problems. Each type addresses different aspects of knowledge and requires different methodological approaches. Understanding these types helps researchers frame their problems appropriately and select suitable methods for investigation. Descriptive research problems aim to characterize or document phenomena as they exist. They typically address what, who, where, or when questions and establish a foundation for further research. An example might be, what are the experiences of first-generation college students in STEM programs? Relational research problems examine associations between variables or concepts, identifying patterns of connection or co-occurrence. They explore how variables relate to each other without necessarily establishing causality. For example, is there a relationship between sleep quality and academic performance? These problems help identify patterns that may guide later causal investigations. Causal research problems examine influence or effect relationships, addressing does X cause Y questions. These problems require designs that control for alternative explanations. An example might be, does mindfulness training reduce workplace stress? These problems often lead to experimental or quasi-experimental designs. Evaluative research problems assess value, quality, or effectiveness, typically addressing how well or to what extent questions. They often involve comparing outcomes against standards or expectations. For instance, how effective is the new patient discharge protocol in reducing hospital readmissions? Evaluative problems are particularly important for practice and policy decisions. Intervention research problems focus on developing and testing solutions to identified issues. They address how can we improve, solve, enhance questions, and often build on other problem types. These problems emphasize application and impact, bridging research and practice. Examples include, how can telehealth services be optimized to serve rural communities? Or, what interventions effectively reduce implicit bias among healthcare providers? Intervention research is especially valuable for translating knowledge into practical improvements. When evaluating potential research problems, we need to consider both significance and practicality. Significance concerns whether answering this question will contribute meaningful knowledge. We should ask, does it address an important gap? Does it connect to broader theories or issues? Will the findings have implications beyond the specific study context? Practicality focuses on feasibility considerations. Do you have access to necessary data or participants? Are the required methods within your skill set or resources? Is the time frame realistic for your constraints? What costs are involved, and how will they be covered? Balancing these considerations helps identify problems that are both meaningful and feasible. Ethical dimensions are also critical in evaluating research problems. Consider, could the research process harm participants? Are there vulnerable populations requiring special protection? How will you handle confidentiality and consent? Do benefits outweigh potential risks? Feasibility assessment asks whether the problem can be investigated empirically. Can you access relevant literature? Are appropriate methods available? Can the problem be addressed within your constraints? These considerations help screen out problems that may be interesting but cannot be studied ethically or practically, saving time and resources by focusing on viable research directions. When systematically evaluating a potential research problem, consider these key criteria: significance, relevance, practicality, ethics, personal interest, and expertise. Significance examines the knowledge contribution, while relevance considers connections to theory and practice. Practicality addresses resource requirements and constraints. Ethics ensures participant protection and research integrity. Personal interest sustains your motivation throughout the research process, and expertise considers whether you have or can develop the necessary knowledge and skills. Rating these criteria can help you compare multiple potential problems and select the most promising direction for your research. Being aware of common pitfalls can help you avoid them in your own research planning. These include developing problems that are too broad or ambitious, problems with insufficient theoretical grounding, or those with unclear significance or implications. Other pitfalls include selecting problems requiring unavailable resources, defining problems in ways that presuppose answers, pursuing problems that can't be studied empirically, or choosing problems based solely on convenience rather than significance. Recognizing these potential issues early allows you to refine your problem statement and strengthen your research foundation. An effective problem statement clearly identifies the issue or gap to be addressed, establishes context and significance, and indicates a general approach or direction. It avoids presupposing specific outcomes, is concise but comprehensive, connects to broader theoretical frameworks, and sets appropriate boundaries for inquiry. For example, consider this problem statement. Despite increasing implementation of telehealth services in rural communities, utilization rates remain low among older adults with chronic conditions, suggesting potential barriers that require investigation. This statement identifies a specific issue, provides context, suggests significance, and indicates a direction for research without presupposing findings. As we conclude this lesson, consider these next steps for developing your own research problems. Identify a potential research problem in your area of interest. Begin preliminary examination of literature related to this problem. Apply the evaluation criteria we've discussed to assess the problem's suitability for research. Prepare to refine your problem statement based on this evaluation. In our next lesson, we'll explore the characteristics of researchable problems in more detail, building on the foundations established today. As we conclude this lesson, consider these next steps for developing your own research problems. Identify a potential research problem in your area of interest. Begin preliminary examination of literature related to this problem. Apply the evaluation criteria we've discussed to assess the problem's suitability for research. Prepare to refine your problem statement based on this evaluation. In our next lesson, we'll explore the characteristics of researchable problems in more detail, building on the foundations established today. To summarize our key points, research begins with identifying meaningful problems. This is the foundation for all subsequent research activities. The pathway narrows from broad interests to specific questions and hypotheses. Research problems derive from multiple sources including experience, literature, theory, social issues, and technology. Different types of problems, descriptive, relational, causal, evaluative, and intervention, address different aspects of knowledge. Careful evaluation of potential problems is essential for quality research. And finally, the journey from curiosity to focused problem is iterative, often requiring multiple refinements before arriving at a well-defined research problem. Thank you for your attention today. Are there any questions about the material we've covered?